Saffron is a powerhouse ingredient that is loaded with antioxidants, and its many benefits for our skin and our overall health are still being realized. Nguyen Oliver, our guest and the founder and CEO of House of M Beauty, has experienced the potential of saffron firsthand. The brand is dedicated to empowering women through their transformative saffron-based skincare products. During our conversation, Anne shared with us how perseverance carried her over seemingly insurmountable obstacles, the importance of representation in the skincare industry, and how early community support can mean everything for a company's future.
How about we just start there and dive in? How was your childhood? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I mentioned briefly earlier, I was born and raised in Vietnam, and my dad was a soldier in the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. And unfortunately, he got stuck back in Vietnam. And so my entire childhood, his big dream was to send his children to the U.S. for school. So growing up, he always reassured me that, the U.S. is like the land of opportunity. As soon as you get here, you can, all of your dreams will come true if you work hard enough. And just really instill in me that belief in myself. And growing up, he also taught me that I am smart enough, that I can do whatever that a man can do. And he also taught me to be humble. So even though you know that you are smart, you cannot let ego get in the way. So that was a few things that my dad have taught me. And my mom, on the other hand, has her own business. She was a tailor, and at an early age, she would always supportive of me, of my ventures, like making bracelets to sell and making necklace. And she would take me to the market and getting the beads and the strings and the closures and things like that. So I would say my childhood was very great. I love it. And then when I was 12, I discovered Michelle Phan. I discovered YouTube. And that was my introduction to the beauty world. And I was obsessed. Every single day after school, I would go home and cannot wait to watch her videos. And I would rewatch them constantly. And I memorize everything. I know how she applied products on her face and things like that. But I never had, the makeup products to try on. So I told myself one day when I get to America, every single penny that I saved, I'm going to buy makeup to play with. So, and not only just Michelle Phan, I think I connect with her deeply because she was somebody that looked like me with the last name that I could recognize. And, the Vietnamese culture, when she said fish sauce in Vietnamese in one of her videos, I remember that. I was like, oh my God, she's like my sister. So that was, I don't know, it's such a strange connection, but that was really it's opened me up to this world of beauty, and I loved it ever since. So I follow beauty trends, and I collect makeup and skincare. And so when I was coming here for school, for high school, when I graduated, my mom got colon cancer, so she passed away. And prior to coming here, actually, my dad passed away from liver cancer. So that was a really defining moment for me because all of a sudden I came here, and then after a few years, I lost literally everything, not only emotionally, but financially as well. So I couldn't go to school anymore, and I had to make a decision to survive. So either I survive here or I have to go back to Vietnam. which at the time at 19, it was a huge decision to make. And I'm sharing this. I don't know if you've gone through like the immigrant like journey, or you know somebody that gone through it, but when you stay here and you're not going to school, you're technically staying here illegally. And that terrifies you as a child. And then, so then I had that decision to make. I know if I go back to Vietnam, I would lose everything. I would lose years and years and years of my dad's hard work, my mom's hard work, to their saving to send me here. But staying here is also terrifying. Like, staying here means you're breaking the rules. You're alone by yourself. You have no money. I didn't know the first thing. And during that time, I was working at a pho restaurant. And I asked the owner to give me an advance so I can go and rent a small room to live. And that was the best $800 I could have ever spent. It saved my life. I put down a deposit on a little room and a first month rent, and I worked at a pho restaurant for like at least 6 months, and then with just changing jobs like here and there to grow, and then I started my family young, and so that was my childhood up to this point of meeting somebody that I love and then start a family.
I think, first of all, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And I wanted to say that the first time that we had a call, I would say the first thing that stood out to me was just this ability that you had to be vulnerable and be authentic upfront. Like, you told me your story, you were very open about that, and you didn't hold back with the details, and it showed me immediately who you were as a person. And I think that's when I told you that everything we're doing here with the Founders Roundtable, we're driven by authentic storytelling. And so I appreciated that so much coming from you right off the bat. It really showed us, the kind of person that you were. And so, this gives us all the proof we need that tells us why you're such a bold innovator and why you keep going. And you're doing it to create an impact, and you're doing it because of your experiences. And so, yeah, we really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you. I think it comes when you're growing up and I never feel like I belong anywhere. And I wanted to be honest and not sugarcoat or making it better than actually is, because I was on the other receiving end a lot of the time too, and I didn't feel connected or good enough, or if I'm ever going to be that person.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was curious about what that journey has been for you, in terms of feeling alone, or any feelings, of abandonment at that time, because searching for self can often feel isolated and lonely in those spaces. And what you just described is like, hey, I always felt, alone, and not really feeling like you have a connection, to things. So I wanted to just see how were you able to work through that? Is that something you're still working through?
I think it's a journey for sure.
Yeah.
Society tend to box us in a little tiny box, and
Yeah.
we're much bigger than that. So I have come to terms with all of the above. Like, I'm an immigrant. I am, a Vietnamese immigrant. I'm a mom. I'm a business owner. I'm a founder. I'm all of the above, and I think that's your superpower. I used to let it stop me, let it make me feel like, okay, I don't belong here. I don't belong to this group because I relate to a certain piece of it, but not all of it. I don't belong to that group because same thing. But then I feel like as soon as I realize that's my superpower, that's something that I should embrace, I start connecting to a lot more group of people.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like that's the beauty of it. And as soon as I realized that, I made a promise to myself. I need to use House of M Journey to inspire anyone that I can. Like a mom with 2 kids that wanted to chase her dream, a Vietnamese immigrant thinking that their English is not good enough. I went through that for a long time. Somebody that without a mom and a dad and without millions of dollars in the bank to start a business, like all of those things were a piece of me all in one, but yet I can inspire other people. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it is. It's about inspiring other people, right? And um, many times the things that cause us the most frustration or pain is where we actually can birth things, right? Like, and you've also been really transparent about your stint with postpartum, depression, and I read that you described it as being one of the darkest, moments of your life. And so I wanted to see what were those signs or symptoms that you recognize and say, something's not right here, and I need to go see what this is all about.
It started with just the feeling of number one, throughout that journey, I've always loved my kid, and that was the
Mhm.
only like piece of hope that I hang on to.
Mhm.
So I never had a feeling of, okay, I wanted to be done with it
Yeah.
or whatever. But it was just so hard, like so sad, so alone. Even though I have a partner, that was it. That was just pretty much myself and my husband. And we had no help. And I had nobody to talk to. I didn't have a mom to tell me what should I do and what I shouldn't do, or just being there and just picking up the baby for 30 minutes so I can shower. And I didn't even really want to shower. And at night when the baby sleeps, then I stay up filled with anxiety, just worrying about things. And I think you gotta listen to your gut as soon as you feel like this is not you, this is not normal. You should not listen to other people telling you that you're too sensitive, it will pass, it's this, it's that. And you gotta go get help yourself. Like, no one's gonna help you. You cannot expect even the people that love you the most to really, truly understand what you're going through. So as soon as you feel, something, you gotta reach out for help. And that's what I did.
Um, I think many times we think that we can handle certain things when they happen, or it's okay, it's not a big deal, it's fine. And we don't realize that it's actually turning into more of a snowball, right? It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger because we're not really asking for help. So I like that you touched on just really knowing yourself and knowing when something is off with your body. That's really big, and it's just important to get help, especially when we're having dark moments like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I hope now that with more and more people like talking about mental health and just, postpartum depression in general, people will start realizing to take, the women's word for it. But most of the time that doesn't happen. And if you rely on other people to push you, you might end up worse. So, yeah.
Yeah, you talked about community there as far as like, yeah, listening to other people compared to really, yourself. Who was that support for you that really helped you kind of find your way into recovery to postpartum?
I would say my husband.
Yeah.
He was the one that's there through and through. He didn't know much, but through him, I knew that. I needed to do something for myself. I needed to chase my dream. Like, being a mom and a wife is not enough for me. And both prior to this, I helped him with his business. And so he was the first example that I saw that you chase your dream, and it doesn't matter how old you are. So he went through corporate world for 10 years. He didn't like it. He wanted to restore classic VW cars for living. And when we first met, we had nothing. So we started with he started with rebuilding a small motor, like just buying it and rebuilding it and selling it, and save up enough to finally rebuilding a car. And I was there the entire journey and seeing the commitment and the grit, and that was the push that I needed to, like, okay, this can happen. Because being a partner in that business, even though it's half of mine, it's not me. It's not my dream. And at the end of the day, I don't want to regret that I wasted my entire life without, really going after what I wanted. So my husband was the anchor for me, or he still is my anchor.
I want to go into the transition point of you being at that point when you realized that you were half a partner in this business, but it wasn't you, to actually launching House of M. And I don't know if there was a defining moment where you felt like you were on the road to starting this. I know I want you to talk about, your discovery of saffron. But if there were any other defining moments, like when you were working at the pho restaurant and you finally got, that $800 to put into a place of your own, were there any moments like that? And what was that journey like, getting it started? And even deciding to start is a huge decision, right?
Yeah, I think so. When I discovered medicinal quality saffron, it helped me. It helped me to sleep better. It helped to ease my anxiety. And I then discovered that it's the only plant-based ingredient that can soothe and calm sensitive skin while also brighten at the same time. And I was going through postpartum skin is a very unique skin type. It was just that. It was way too sensitive. We have melasma, just dark spots like everywhere. And I was struggling to find something that treat my melasma while still being gentle enough. So the products on the market for sensitive skin would just soothe and calm, and the brightening treatments would be way too harsh on my skin. And when I discovered that about saffron, I wanted to do something about it. I didn't really know what was the first product, but then when I just shared that with my husband, he told me to start, and I shared with him, there's a hole in the market here, like there's a huge opportunity here that it seems like brands just forgotten about mothers, and mothers during that time we're way too busy to take care of a human being, let alone ourselves. So then when we ran into a few roadblocks, we end up giving up on taking care of our skin. Like, it's too hard. Yet I was there. So when I shared that with my husband, he told me to use our saving that we were putting together for our first home to start House of M. And I think that was the defining moment for me. I was scared. I was, what if we lose it all? What if we worked so hard for this? We worked for years for this. And, what if it doesn't work? What if it's just in my head that I thought this is the greatest idea and no one cared about it? But then he told me, like we came together with nothing, and we built this, and we can always build again. And I hang on to that. That is, sometimes in life you just need that hope or that trust or that faith from someone and you hang on to it, and that's enough for you to shut out all the fears, like to shut out, like, oh, you have a newborn. How are you going to feed him? You have this and you have that. Now you don't have a home. Whatever. It doesn't matter. At that point, I'm like, okay, la 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 la. I'm going. And, and that's another thing I have always shared with other people, that when you wanted to start something, you got to be very protective of your baby. That's like an infant that you only share with the people that you know that they understood. Because then if you share with people, even though they love you and they don't see it, they're gonna shoot it down. They're gonna affect, your decision making and kill your dreams. And I've also witnessed that with my husband. Like at 19, he wanted to become a music producer, and everybody around him saying that it's too hard, and he stopped. And he picked his second dream, which is classic cars. So that was the moment that I needed. I'm like, okay, as long as I have this partner with me that, have faith in me, I'm good. I'm not going to tell a soul what I'm doing. That's all I need. So, yeah.
No, I think that the topic of getting started and what it takes to get started is so interesting that we're considering doing an entire episode on it, because just talking about what it takes and, like you said, especially in the beginning, selectively choosing who you share that vision with, and honestly, even along the way, selectively sharing, because people are no one's going to believe in it as much as you, and your ultimate vision is probably so insane that no one else is going to hear it and be like, oh yeah, that's realistic. Mm-hmm. And so that entire thing is so interesting. I know that for me, it took me a while to start. I honestly wish I started sooner, and the pandemic finally gave me the push. And, I'm doing this health and wellness tech company. So it was unfortunately the perfect time when this global disaster struck to do that. But I know for so many people, it is so difficult. And for women especially, we look for all of the extra experience and justifications that we don't even need to get started, because we just assume that we're not qualified enough. And so I'm really happy that you mentioned the selective sharing, especially because you really just have to have as much belief in yourself as possible to just get it started. And I was wondering because you talked about how you bootstrapped it with, that original money for a long time, but when it came time to actually convince other people to join you, how did you explain the vision of House of M so that they would be convinced enough to go with you on this journey?
Yeah, I think it worked out perfectly for me. And I believe that, it worked out because of my personality too. And if you have the capability to go out there and fundraise with just an idea, and you have people invested in you, that's great. That's perfect. But I think for me, bootstrap for 4 years and finally starting to raise our first seed round this year, it worked out in a way that, I show that what I'm capable of. Prior to this, I don't have, a portfolio. I don't have a resume of what I've built before. And that 4 years also taught me a lot. It taught me to be scrappy, taught me to work and use whatever I have, like, work within my means, and also to be able to scale this company from nothing. Even though the initial investment was a good amount, it's nothing compared to what people raise to start a beauty brand. Like, people raise 10 to 20 millions for a beauty brand, and we started out with $75,000. But that really helped me to just start we had enough to perfect a formula. We had enough to pay for the initial first test run, and we had to use the factory's standard packaging and put a sticker on it, and that was our first product. So looking back, I'm like, that works out because I'd be able to show how much we have grown from that bottle to rebrand to custom packaging to few more products to scale 10 times growth compared to 2020 to 2021 to getting into Nordstrom. And after Nordstrom, then we fundraise. And I feel like that was just much easier for people to invest, to believe in me, to believe in the vision, because we are the first Vietnamese owned skincare brand to be in Nordstrom. We're not going to be the last, because I am planning to, work and bring people along this journey. But that is, and we're going to another retailers, and we're also the first Vietnamese owned skincare brand in that retailer. So these are the tractions that make people and people have witnessed our growth for the past few years. So as soon as we say, hey, okay, we're ready for this round, everybody wanted to invest, and our community really came together and supportive of us. So we're raising, our goal is 5 million, and we already have 1.5 funded. And that was purely within our community. I haven't even opened this up to anyone yet. And I think, I let our success, our growth speaks. And also I didn't want it to fundraise earlier because I don't want it to undervalue myself either. I know how far I could take this. So timing is really crucial as well.
I really love that you touched on every single step that you went through to get to this point, to show your growth and to actually have traction before raising traditional funding. Because like we talked about previously, yes, there are people who will go out there and raise millions based on a deck, and that's great, but isn't it even better to have traction and to show that you put a product out there with the resources that you had, and just put everything out there, everything that you now have to show for it because you decided to sell something, even if it wasn't perfect. I think that's such a great lesson that I think a lot of people listening can take away from this is, if you want to start something, try figuring out what resources you already have and see what you can put out there right now instead of waiting for, those millions of dollars if possible.
Yes. And I think perfectionism is going to kill a lot of dreams. It is already killing a lot of dreams. And I used to be that perfectionist. And when I closed my eyes and launched my first product, I was just like, oh my God, I couldn't. It's so ugly. I can't. But I'm like, I know what's inside. I know that it works. I know it's unique. As soon as just people give it a chance, they will fall in love with it. So I'm glad I did, and that's why we're here today. But if I was waiting, I don't think we're going to launch until like 2 years later to save enough to have a custom packaging. But for what?
Oh, 1,000%. You actually brought up a really great point. That's one of the biggest challenges that founders actually have is it's not necessarily that they are procrastinating, but they are stuck in the research stage. It's always, hey, I can learn more. What's the most efficient way to do this? Then that leads, to thinking of, well, maybe I should wait until I have the $1 million for the product, right, to develop it. So you speaking of humble beginnings and like, hey, this is just understanding like this is not going to be perfect the first go around, but we need to at least try produce something, right? To have the vision. It's really, I think it just goes back to the vision and belief, because once it's out there, hey, then we can just keep going until it gets better. But if there's no traction, would you say procrastination kills dreams? So Man, I really think that that's something that I think as founders, like we really, really have to work on.
Yeah. And I think for me, I picked the one thing that I value the most. So the one thing I value the most, I need it when I launch. I know the beauty market is so saturated. We have to come out with something extremely unique, something our own. And we spend all of our resources on that. So yes, perfectionism can work for you, but you cannot be a perfectionist on the entire thing, or else it's just going to take way too long and spending way too much money just to get started. So I picked what I value the most, which is owning our formula and releasing something unique. And then we're still not perfect now. If I have to sit down and wait for things to be perfect, I'm never going to be happy. And we're still changing, we're still growing, and we still perfecting things. And I think that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've had a few founders on that have been participants of Sephora Accelerator, and they spoke about how it's helped them so much with their brand, with marketing and getting presence in different retail spaces. So, what do you think has been the most vital part of your marketing strategy to really get it in front of the consumer?
I would say our what helped us the most was our community. And I started within the Vietnamese community, Vietnamese immigrants community. And when I first started, it was I launched on Facebook. We have these little Vietnamese Facebook marketplace that people would sell things in Vietnamese, and that was how I started. And I would post on there, like wholesale opportunities, and you buy X amount and you get a discount, because I know I have to move quick with the inventory. So then I start selling it to nail salons, and people stock in their nail salons, in their spa. And that was our first like tractions. And people that are working in the nail industry too, they deal with a lot of harsh chemicals, so their skin becomes very sensitive. But they also work long hours, and they don't have time at the end of the day to do an 8-step skincare routine. So our first product actually solved all of that issues all in one. And although Vietnamese consumers, they don't go on social media and comment and like and whatever, but they're silent buyers. So as soon as we were in front of Nordstrom and we show them the sales stats, and where the demographics that are buying our products, the buyers were surprised. So I would say wherever you are, you gotta lean into your community, especially now more than ever. The beauty market is very, very saturated with celebrity brands that consumers started to lose the faith, and we gotta like scale back and really put out quality products and find a way to communicate with our consumers that we understand them, we know them, we're one of them. And I think that has been the biggest like success for us in spreading House of M.
Yeah, community is huge. I think that's really important to just start there, and it can be starting small, right? And so you can, until you're able to really gauge what you're doing and having traction. Because I think oftentimes when we have a product, we have this vision of who the customer is, how the product will be received or the service. And when actuality, I found that the customer will really drive it for you. If you put it out there, that really helps answer a lot of questions you have as far as what you're doing, what that looks like, how often is it that the consumer is using the product or service. Like so many details that I think we often can get stopped on and enter that cycle of thinking and overthinking things. Our consumer can really answer it. So I really appreciate you allowing the consumer to drive there, and then which led to you guys having a huge presence now in retail spaces. So that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And I think in the beginning, all I knew was I knew that this is something unique to the beauty market. I didn't know much. And I let my customers decide it for me how to fit our products in their routine, in their lifestyle. So if you're spending all of your time working out, like, oh, who's your demographic? What is this? What is that? And spending a lot of money in that marketing strategy, sometimes it might not work because you gotta, and that's one thing too. We don't spend a lot on marketings because I listen to my consumers. I listen to their feedbacks and what they're saying. And okay, like people can text message me and say, "Hey, Anne, what would be great in my routine? An eye cream or something." And it's not a random conversation to me. Like I have it in the back of my head, and a lot of that, then we might come up with something. So you gotta have that open communication with your customers. Like they're the one that's spending their hard-earned money to buy your products. You gotta listen to them. You shouldn't like you can't just spend money on narrowing down the ideal demographics and spend the marketing dollars there and not take a step back and realize, hey, who's the one that buying our products though?
No, I love that you make yourself so available to getting feedback directly from the people buying your products because, yeah, like you said, that gives you so much insight into how people are using the products, where they're putting them in their skincare routine, like you said, and then maybe even getting ideas for future products based on what people like and how to position them. So I think that's so true. You don't really have to spend a crazy amount on marketing strategy because the key is really listening to the people you're creating the products for.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to ask you what it was like to develop the very first product. Like, what was it like since its inception? And even just sourcing the materials for it, like the saffron that you talked about. How did you test it all? And how did you make sure that it was, like you said, you knew it worked when you put it in the bottle, no matter how the original packaging looked? How did you just make sure that all of that was all good to go before you bottled it up?
Yeah, so I would say in the beginning, I still am ignorant is bliss for me. I didn't know much, and I asked a lot of questions. I knew enough. I knew what I wanted. I knew the products has to be a certain way. It's got to be oil based, but it's not thick enough. And so I knew what I wanted. But, when it comes to even sourcing, I have to buy a whole lot of different types of saffrons and trying it and drinking it as a tea. And that was way in the beginning before I even start House of M. And I just buying saffron because I wanted to figure out like which one works for my body. So it even taking me a while to finally found a medicinal quality that potent enough that works. Because when you go to the market, it's saffron for cooking. It's not the same as the one that you use to treat, your insomnia and your skin. So that was my revelation. And when I look into it more, Google is your best friend. Like really, I Google everything. And, I found out that there's actually an international standard way of testing for saffron. And it's based on the 3 key components that they would distinguish which one is the cooking grade and which one is the medicinal grade. So then that was the very great information to have. So before we submit the raw material into production, we batch test them, so you gotta have a really open mind and curiosity. I was very curious, and I still am. I would stay up late at night and just Googling things and looking for things. And when you work with a really good manufacturers, they will do a lot of the tests for you. That's why I wanted to work with a manufacturer in France, is because European standards are the strictest standards when it comes to cosmetics. So a lot of the times you make the products in the US, we would use certain ingredients that US ban. And when the brand's ready to go into the European market, they have to reformulate and take out a few of ingredients. So I knew that much, and I wanted to pick a manufacturers that works for international growth. And not only that, when you work with a very reputable manufacturers, they do all of the testing for you, the stability testing, the compatibility testing, and you don't have to worry about it. It saves you a lot of stress. So I know that much to invest in the beginning. And then, the things that are not really that priorities for me, like the packaging and the outer box and the website, the logo, I can draw it up right now, that's right now. This is just to get started. But the things that's needed to be invested in, we did.
And you talked about wanting to work with a specific manufacturer, this manufacturer in France. I've heard how long it takes. I'm a tech founder, so I don't have to deal with all of these things like finding a manufacturer or even, product sourcing and things like that. But I've heard that it's extremely difficult to just create a relationship that's rooted in trust with a manufacturer, and especially with one that's overseas. I can imagine that was probably difficult. So what was the process that you went through to actually secure that partnership? Were you cold emailing? Did you have a intro that was made for you? What was that like?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you hear that it's difficult. I feel like it's pretty simple for me. And again, it comes back to you're ignorant is bliss. You just email them, you ask questions, you ask a lot of questions. And I feel like because I ask a lot of questions, they're like, okay, this person, whoever they are on the other end, they must know what they're doing. In reality, I don't know much. I'm asking the things that I wanted, It took us a while, though, to find the manufacturers, because I know that I want to supply them with our raw materials, with the saffron. However, most of the manufacturers overseas and over here included, as soon as you work with them, you send in the marketing brief, you send in, what's the active ingredients you want in the formula, what's the percentage, etc. And then they take that information and they go out there and source the active ingredients through a third-party supplier. But I knew back then that saffron have different qualities, and the majority of the people only know saffron with a cooking quality. And even then, when it's a third-party active ingredient suppliers, they're going to use whatever saffron they can find. And I have already spent months of finding something that worked for me. So I really wanted to use that, supplying them the raw materials, and they can do the extraction in-house. And that, I feel like, was a thing that weed out the rest and really narrow into a really good manufacturers. I would say I email countless of manufacturers, and when they don't do that, I cannot work with them. So that was the beginning of finding the manufacturers.
Okay, so at this point, you found your manufacturer. You receive your first batch of product to test out this sample that the manufacturer has created. Once you've decided that, hey, this product works well, this is up to the quality that I want. Now, was the next step to raise additional capital? Like, what was the next step after, hey, this product is where I want it to be?
We didn't really race until this year. So in the beginning, it was just selling the products, save the money, reinvest it back into the business, and slowly growing that. So from a small purchase orders to, and I had to negotiate with them. You're not going to get what you need unless you ask. This doesn't hurt to ask. So they have a high minimum, then you, being honest with them. Hey, this is my dream. I really wanted to do this, but I don't have enough for your minimum. But I can, whatever. You have to work with them. So starting from a small PO to a slightly larger, and to saving up to work on another product, and then also perfecting the new packaging. So we've slowly, gradually grow. And I think because of that, now that we're fundraising, the investors really trust us. We really show them that we are profitable. We can work with what we have. We're not burning through cash. We can be scrappy, and especially when you make a mistakes with your own hard-earned money, it hurts so much that you don't do it again. So make mistakes with your own money. And then you go out there and you fundraise. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no, I hear you. We actually had a few beauty founders in on the pod, and they had mentioned when they started their VC journey, it was some days they would just have to hop on a plane like at a moment's notice to go and meet with investors, and it was a roller coaster. So how has your experience been with the raising capital? Did you have to go in for pitches? Or has it kind of happened a bit differently for you?
Yeah, I think it's a bit different for us. So I started this round within the Vietnamese community, and the majority of the investors that I know, they're in Orange County. So we would set up lunches. And then they would introduce me to their friends. So I have a core group of, I would say, community leaders. The relationship I've built throughout the years. And as soon as I'm ready, I told that small group of people, and like, hey, we're ready to fundraise. And if you know anyone, please connect me. And I would love to set up a lunch, a meeting, whatever, to really show what we're building here as House of M and what we're planning the next 5 years. I would say to have a very clear vision in mind of what you want, because our goal is to get to an acquisition. And finding the people that believe in you, and mentors that have guide you to that point. So I have a lot of mentors that guide me here. I didn't have these kind of ideas all on my own. And podcasts, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I learn a lot from there. So that is one thing that for us, we're very fortunate in that way, that a lot of our investors are local. They're angel investors. They're Vietnamese immigrants and came here after the war, but be able to build such fantastic lives for themselves. And now they wanted to invest in the next generation of Vietnamese Americans. And I'm very grateful that we have that network. And that goes back to, again, the 4 years of bootstraps and building, and really make these meaningful connections so that one day there's a perfect timing. Like, I believe in timing. I believe in God, the universe. Yeah. So it all worked out right now for us.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that. So I'm a believer as well, and I believe that there is really a time and season for everything. And going back to a few points that you made earlier, just about when you have that idea, it's really important that you act on it at that time. And many things are just rooted in belief, right? That belief and hope that what I have and what I've been given, what's been placed on my heart, this is something that I am supposed to dive into. And I've spoke about me calling these things like breadcrumbs that ultimately lead up to like this bigger purpose and impact that I really believe each one of us are called to make while we have our time here. So and I also find what's interesting is that I hear you and relate to you from a sense of feeling alone in different spaces in your life. And it's interesting that you felt that you started out with not really having community. And it sounds like you found your community, and the community has your back. The community supports you, hears you, and they're not just saying that. They back that, with their money. So I think it's such a beautiful full circle moment for you, just from the outside in, hearing your story.
Yeah, thank you. And I am very, very grateful for that. And I fight hard to represent my community well. There's a lot of times, people would say, like being a Vietnamese owned brand is too niche and this and that. And I'm like, well, without my Vietnamese community, I wouldn't be here. So I'm only giving credit when credit is due. And I wanted to represent them well. I want to make them proud. Like they guide me here. And not only the Vietnamese community, but the community of moms, community of working moms. And I met a lot of my mentors, even though they're not Vietnamese, they're working moms. They're female, like Joan. She's our advisor and our investor now. And she's a working mom. I related to that so much. Just juggles two kids and building a business is insane sometimes. And sometimes you feel extremely that kind of connection that even a mom that has 20-year-old kid wouldn't understand. You have to have small children. You have to have a business. You have to go out there and fundraise. It's a different kind of heart in this day and age. And I'm so grateful that I have Bumo and that community of moms creators that just, I know what you're talking about. Like I'm on 4 hours of sleep too, you know? And yeah, like, and I'm glad that I finally found, I think found my community, and it started with me deciding that turning something a tragedy to something unique, and that went way back to after I went through my postpartum depression. I really made a promise to myself that I cannot pass down the generational traumas to my children, and I cannot play victim anymore. Playing victim is what holding you back. My parents died, whatever. I don't belong anywhere. These people, whatever. And those are the things that are holding you back. Those are the things that stop you from turning that into your superpower. You gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta just take a step back and like really look at yourself. I truly believe that in order to grow your business, you gotta grow yourself. And you gotta put yourself in check. You gotta look at yourself all the time and have the vulnerability and the courage to have that kind of conversation with yourself. Yeah.
Oh, that was so good. You are so right. I think personal development really takes personal time, and it takes a different level of awareness to look at yourself in the mirror and to not see everything looking so pretty. Okay. To see those scars and the things that aren't so pretty that you have to work on, so that self-awareness and being vulnerable, like a business, I think, really checks you in all areas of your life, emotionally, financially, mentally, so many different things. And so I really relate to that. I think it's so very true. And I know many founders will relate to that as well. Like you really have to be honest with yourself.
You said to grow your business, you have to grow yourself. And I'm sure that you've seen growth in different areas of yourself as you scale. You have this partnership with Nordstrom, and now you have a new partnership that's coming up, which I love for you to talk about. But obviously, the process of forming those relationships is a journey in itself, figuring out if they're the right partners for you, and figuring out what you're really looking for and what your vision is to scale. So I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about that process and the growth that you had to do within yourself to say, I'm good enough, I'm confident that, we've grown enough as a brand and we deserve this next level, this next partnership.
Yeah, I think it's never like a rainbow and sunshine and only constantly going up. It's not. It's a up and down kind of journey, and I'm sure you relate to it. It's a founder and entrepreneur's journey is like a roller coaster, and I really think the time that it took us to get here was to prep me to deal with the downtime, to not give up during the downtime, to believe in it so much that, okay, God, this hurts. This hurts so bad. I want to curl up in a ball and cry and whatever. And I did cry. And the next day I still wake up and I still go and do it. So, I don't want to also paint a picture that it's like constant growth and constant like, oh, everything's great and we do this and we do that. And there was time that, when we first started, I went through Range Me to connect with buyers. I didn't know anyone. So, somebody told me about that website. I invest. I put in what we have to get verified on there and so that I can connect with buyers. And I reach out to buyers and they say no. Not Nordstrom. Ulta said no. Sephora said no. Whatever. And that crushed me. And it kind of silly looking back now. I'm like, okay, of course they're gonna say no. You're tiny. You couldn't even figure. You didn't have a clear point of difference yet. So of course they're gonna say no. Maybe you're not aligned with their demographics. Your price point is too high. Whatever. So there are times that even with the Nordstrom journey, the launch was delayed for 4 months, and we were supposed to launch in May, and we didn't launch until September. And during that time, around April, I thought they're going to put us on the shelf forever. And that was another defining moment for me. So, but prior to that, we have been dealing with the buyers all on our own, me and our team, and none of us had experience with dealing with buyers. So after the conversation with Nordstrom, they loved it. We signed contracts. They already sent out a PO for the gift bags, the gift sachets. But we've been waiting for 2 months at that point to get the official PO, and it never came. And every single time we follow up, it's always delay. And at one point it says, we don't know if we're going to move forward. That was it. It took my breath away. I thought that is it for House of M. I put everything on the line here. And at that point, we don't know where else to go. But then I also, during that really dark time, I realized, okay, we have no experience working with buyers, dealing with buyers, negotiating with them. I need an expert. And we then went out and hired a broker with relationships. And that has been working out great for us. So a lot of the times that, you write your plans, and I have heard this somewhere, And it says you write out your goals in pen, but the steps to get there in pencil, and not to get stuck on the steps to get there. It would really save you a lot of heartbreaks. And I going through enough of that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna trust the universe now of whatever meant to be meant to be. I'm gonna work hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna work extremely hard still. I'm gonna try my best, put everything on the table. But at the end of the day, whatever works, whatever is meant for us will happen. And if it doesn't happen at that moment in time, it's gonna happen later. And I thank God it happened later, because at that point we're 4 months more mature to be able to handle the launch, to handle the amount of like support and overwhelming support from our community. Within the first 30 days, Nordstrom was sold out, and not had we not wait, we would have not had the stock to replenish them quick enough. So it all worked out. It all worked out in the end.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's amazing to hear that you guys sold out so quickly. I'm not surprised because it seems like such an incredible product. And I want you to talk a little bit about what this next year is going to be like for you, as far as you know, because as you just said, we don't know what the journey is going to look like. You know, we have our end goal, but the journey is going to continuously change. I know you guys have some exciting, things that are coming up. So if you'd like to talk about that, we'd love to share it with our audience.
Yeah. So for Nordstrom, we now have been sold out for 3 times, and we've exceeded their expectations, and they're rolling us out to stores. So that's very great news. And then during the summer, we're gonna be in another retailers as well. I cannot say what yet because and then this year is really about growing our team, growing the inventory to support these retailers' launches, and also having the marketing strategy in place for each retailers to support them. And hopefully, we will get to Sephora one day. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. I just can't say. We're coming out with new products too. So we haven't launched a new product since beginning of 2021, so 2 years ago. So yeah, so we're coming out with new products as well. So very exciting, a lot of exciting things.
That's incredible. And we look forward to continuing to share, your guys' brand news as it comes out. We'll definitely make sure that we support you guys in sharing that. I think we want to wrap up with just talking about your purpose and what you feel like that is, when you discovered that and how that drives you and how it'll continue to drive you and House of M moving forward.
I think I had this conversation with a few friends recently, actually, and they share the topic of essence and purpose came up. And it's not just like career, but it's just your life purpose. And I think for me, my life purpose is to use this journey to inspire others. So our end goal is not, well, of course, the acquisition, when it happens, we'll make money. But that's not the end goal. I think that's just the byproduct. And somebody told me as long as you continue to put in good work day in and day out, all of these things like the connections, the networking, the money, the fame, the whatever, it will come as a byproduct, and it's not as a goal. And I think my purpose is to inspire others, that when they look at me, they see something in me that they can relate to, that, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. Because, at the end of the day, when I started, I was a 22-year-old with no college degree, no family, no parents that left me money. Not I couldn't go out there and fundraise and all of that, and I still be able to chase my dream, be able to break into an industry that is one of the toughest. It's like beauty is like kind of like tech, everybody wanted to be in it. And there are a lot more people out there that with money. But I think a lot of us get scared because, people out there who has more money than us, more resources than us, and they're doing it. So like, how can we compete? But the one thing that people tend to forget or underestimate is themselves, is their passion, is their vision. Like I tell my friends all the time, like, money's everywhere, but talent's hard to come by. As soon as you have that talent, you got to share it with the world. And you got to be so proud of what you have within yourself, what you know, and that will be worth more than any amount of money out there. And you just got to start. And I think like that is my purpose for this, is to use House of M as a vehicle to, inspire others and help others, and just being that representation that, can change somebody's life. Just like Michelle Phan has changed mine,
I love this podcast so much because we get to talk to amazing, inspiring people like you. And I always tell Dominique, I always leave so inspired by these conversations, especially just to in the day-to-day of company building. You sometimes have to keep reminding yourself, okay, one, let go of the perfection, two, just take action and keep going, because momentum is going to get you where you want to be, not sitting here dreaming about what the ultimate vision is, although that's very important to keep that in mind. It's the day-to-day traction. Keep going, keep putting that energy in, and these conversations always really inspire me to continue doing that. So we appreciate you so much for joining us today. Also, I can't believe I didn't ask you this before, but where did the name come from for House of M? We've been meaning to ask you this.
Yeah. So M is for miracles. It's a tribute to my personal journey, and just the journey of growing myself and the company and chasing after my dreams. There are a lot of moments in life that I couldn't explain. It's not a coincidence. I know that it's meant to be. I know that there's some power out there that's lining all these things up, and it just happens to in my favor. And when I started House of M, I couldn't really found a better word than miracles. So that's what it's for.